Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga, but I guess Hunter x Hunter events. And it's a very simple inquiry, which is, where's Gon? Why it might strike some people as a little bit odd that our primary protagonist doesn't even seem to warrant a single mention. Well, let's get into why here and arc. And as I'm sure we're all familiar, this was not exactly Gon's finest moment, as due to his profound anger, sadness, and despair in regards to losing Kite, Gon was able to invoke Nen in a truly terrifying way, summoning up all of the power he would ever have and go on to brutally kill Neferpitou, who legitimately thought that this power could have posed a threat to the Chimera and King himself. Pretty scary stuff. However, in order to accomplish this, Gon made a dangerous vow, declaring that he did not care if this was the end for him so long as he used everything he had to kill Pitou. And at the very least, he was successful in that declaration, becoming one of the most powerful beings we've ever seen in the series, albeit temporarily, and at an exceptional cost. And this was something that Pitou came to realize just prior to their death, that Gon had accomplished this by essentially compressing his life, taking that natural gift he was born with, and being willing to throw it away. And with this, of course, the use of Nen. Pitou hypothesized that Gon would never be able to invoke control of Aura again, and died happily, knowing that Gon would not become a long-term threat to the king. But there was a lot more to the price Gon paid than this, as it was directly linked to how much of the power he used during the skirmish, which was not an unsubstantial quantity. Following the battle, he immediately fell unconscious, and his body eventually withered into an exceptionally unenviable existence, on the cusp of both life and death. As such, when he learned the facts of the altercation, Illumi Zoldyck went on to describe the vow that Gon had made as accepting a fate even worse than death. But of course, even though Hunter x Hunter does get quite dark at times, this is still a shonen, and Gon would be saved from this state by Best Boy Killua, rather dangerously invoking the powers of Nanika to allow Gon to make a full recovery. And when I say full recovery, I mean it only took away certain aspects of the vow that Gon had made, which were the effects on his body and his overall lifespan. However, during the vow, Gon had also accepted the condition that he would not be able to use Nen again, and so that restriction remained even after Nanika's actions. Necessarily true, there is definitely a path for Gon to return to prominence, which came courtesy of words from his father Jing, who claimed that he could still sense Gon's aura when they met at the top of the world tree, which makes a lot of sense because aura and life force are directly connected, so for Gon to have no aura would effectively kill him. Jing's theory though is that Gon simply can't see his aura anymore due to the crazy vow he made, which may imply that Gon might be able to reawaken it in the future, but there is no solid evidence to suggest that this is possible, and Gon's power to will, and that is essentially why Gon is no longer involved in current events, because he doesn't have the power to be an asset anymore, just a liability. Although to be fair, there's a lot more to it than that, because it's not like Gon has a strong desire to visit the Dark Continent, so it's not like he's being excluded from the story. It's more like Gon has made the decision to remove himself from the action. But even if we accepted that yes, this is a shonen manga and the main character should be involved anyway, having him on an expedition to the Dark Continent probably isn't, the wisest of ideas, even if he did still have access to Nen. I highly doubt that the Hunter Association would have recruited him for this mission. I mean, the people who have been selected to go to the Dark Continent are highly skilled, incredibly intelligent, or otherwise absurdly valuable in some way, shape, or form. Neither descriptor of which has really ever fit Gon. He is a pretty reckless being, and what has seen him through the series thus far has been a mixture of natural talent and the efforts of those around him to keep him alive. One way Gon could have been integrated into things though, is if after meeting Jing, he decided to stay with him and became a part of the Beyond Netero faction and headed to the Dark Continent that way. However, the manga did address the idea of why Gon did not choose to stay with Jing, and he himself said that if he'd had access to Aura, then he would have loved to travel with his father, but at the same time, after completing his goal of meeting him, Gon realized that Jing wasn't really a father, more like a cool uncle, and without access to Aura, there was really no reason to stay with him because he had other priorities in life. And this is very much the crux of why Gon is not involved in current events. The fact of the matter is that Gon started this series with the simple goal of finding Jing, and he accomplished that goal. It cost him everything to do so, but he did it. So for Gon to continue to be a prominent figure in the series, he would need to find a new goal, because otherwise there is really no compelling force to feature him. For example, the protagonist we're following through the Succession War arc is Kurapika, and his goal is still alive and well. He's become involved in the war to secure the remaining Scarlet Eyes of the Kurt clan, and as a result, his extreme and driven actions are very understandable. And if Gon were to be present and doing the same thing, I think it would be much less believable, because he has no investment in the Succession War or the Dark Continent for that matter. In fact, after finding Jing, Gon doesn't really know what to do with his life, and that's why he's returned home to Whale Island, to kind of reassess and find a new purpose in his lucky existence. But narratively speaking, this is a pretty great ending to his story. Hunter x Hunter can very comfortably continue without Gon, and trying to shoehorn him in just because he was the main protagonist for the majority of the series can only hurt the story going forward, in my opinion. kind of rescue mission, but other than that, he's in a good spot. To put one together, I don't know if I see the resources being pulled into another voyage. Actually, you know what? That might not be true, because the Karkin Empire are constructing multiple black whales as we speak, so I have to admit there is always a maybe. A big maybe. But I guess another thing to remember about Hunter x Hunter is that this really is not your average shonen. As things began, yes, this was a story where Gon was the protagonist, but over time and in between long hiatuses, Hunter x Hunter has evolved into a story with at least 4 characters capable of taking the helm of the world at any given time. 5 if you include Hisoka, and 6 if you include Jing. And I mention those last 2 because I think that they're going to be particularly important going forward. I mean, in current events, we've had 7 chapters in a row focusing purely on the perspective of Hisoka, and when he does finally kick into gear during the Succession War arc, or even if he bides his time until, he still clearly has a hell of a lot of story to be told. Like, I would not be surprised if Jing was the focal point of the entire Dark Continent would be during the Succession War. So we will probably need a new perspective to follow. Plus, that idea might also be a nice bookend to the series. You know, everything started on a quest to find Jing, so perhaps everything should end with the man himself. And who knows what else could be thrown into the mix. As time has gone on, Hunter x Hunter has evolved into something resembling almost a Game of Thrones style of storytelling, where we have various points to follow through several key characters. I mean, for example, we could also look at Cheadle in a protagonistic manner, as she is the focus of the efforts of the Hunter Association in this arc, but it's not just the quote-unquote good guys either, because Hunter x Hunter has also really put us on the path of blurring the lines between protagonist and intriguing presence within the Succession War, and we are very much privy to his perspective in a much more in-depth level than most of the other princes. Very focus, and there are a bunch of others as well, because that is the powerful world that Togashi has painstakingly developed. It almost doesn't matter who we're following, because there are so many figures in this world who are infinitely compelling individuals. Question to all of you: do you want Gon to return? Incredible arc, one filled with a lot more hardship than most of your average shonen protagonists. And really, if he was to return to the story with full capabilities, I think that would cheapen his action significantly. I really like that Gon's decisions have had major ramifications, and even though he has by and large brute forced his way through this world of adventure, there may not be anything to pull him out of this one, and it's a consequence that he's going to need to learn to live with. In fact, he's lucky enough to be alive and in condition to actually be able to live a life at all. A ton of homework. It's probably not the grandest of endings for a shonen protagonist, but that's how Togashi has seemingly concluded Gon's series arc, and thus why he is not present in current events. But that pretty much does it for this little explanation / discussion on Where's Gon. If you enjoyed this video and the content this channel produces in general, then please do consider donating to the New World Review Patreon, because the support of all of you amazing people is what continues to make this channel possible. And if Patreon isn't quite your style, then please do leave this video a like, share, or subscribe, because it also helps support this channel an incredible amount. And if you'd like to join the fun at any time, then please do head over to my Discord server, where a wide array of shenaniganry takes place on a daily basis. And finally, please do comment with your thoughts on whether or not Gon should return to Hunter x Hunter. This has been the New World Review, and I'll see you next time.